going on, guys? Today you're watching another episode of Luke the Mechanic. And today we're at the local auto hobby shop. Figured I'd bring you a quick instructional video, one of the first of many probably. Today we're going to be doing a quick oil change on my 2000 Nissan Wingroad. So before we get started, here is the vehicle in question. My 2000 Nissan Wingroad. And today we're just gonna do like an overall look over the car, see what all it needs, and get an oil change done. I have put the vehicle up, set it up on a lift, and we're gonna get it prepped and up in the air. So before I get this oil change started, just doing a quick look at everything. CV joints are good. I checked the ball joints and the tie rods, and those seem to be good. And in order to do that, for ball joints you want to grab the upper and lower portion and try and wobble back and forth. And if you get any movement, usually the ball joint's bad. These on both sides seem good. And as for the tie rods, same thing except side to side motion. You're grabbing both sides of the wheel and wobbling. So far no leaks at all, other than a very slight fluid leak from the power steering pump. So far the best $500 I ever spent. We already knew the tires were going to be bad, so that's not really an issue. We've got plans for that already in the making. The other thing I noticed was rear strut starting to leak a little bit. It's not bouncy or anything, so it's not too much of a rush, but I'll be putting that on the to-do list. And again, these tires are okay, but they're dry rotted, and two on the front are pretty bald. So here's the vehicle up on the lift. Now hubcaps gotta go, and I'm also looking for some lowering springs, and shocks are needing to be replaced, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that whole package, as they don't make coilovers for this vehicle. So let's go ahead and get started on this oil change. So for this particular job, we're going to need a 14mm socket with a ratchet or a wrench. And for our particular Wingroad, the owner's manual is all in Japanese, so I can't really tell how many quarts of oil. So with a quick check on the Google machine, we found that this particular 1.5 liter needs 4 quarts of oil. So we'll go get that and the filter, and pull the cap off for ease of flow, and we'll get this thing back up in the air, and we'll change the oil. So we are pretty lucky to have this lift. Makes it easy to fill up one of these buckets and just throw it up underneath the vehicle. Now, I know it's probably something that everyone should know already, but if you're doing an oil change, you want to make sure you're pulling the drain plug from the right side. And in this case, if you look here, this right here is for oil, and if you mostly look on your belt side is where your motor is going to be. If you try to drain your fluid from this side, that's your transmission. You'll have the wrong fluid, you'll mess everything up, and that's no good. Again, 14 mil. We'll get this cracked open and start draining the fluid. you look really close on here, I don't know if you can see it, this might not focus. There's a metal crush washer that needs to be there in order to give it a good seal on the actual pan. If that's not on there, you want to try and get one. These are pretty much reusable unless they're cracked or broken, so just give it a quick inspection, make sure everything's good with it, and then we can put it right back in once this is done. So once we get finished with the oil draining, then we'll move to the filter. So if you can see up there's our filter. And if it was installed properly, I should be able to just put my hand up there and twist it right off. But 9 times out of 10, people will put a wrench on it and put it on there real tight. So let's give it a shot. Look at that. By hand, that's how it should be. I'll go ahead and pull that off. Try to keep it as clean as possible. I don't know why this thing won't focus today. Too much going on, I guess. So we'll go ahead and put that in there for now, and we'll come back to it. Today we're using a Castrol brand GTX. It's a 10W30, and we will revert to Luke for info on that. Thanks, Luke. We're here in the studio with a quick tip on choosing the proper oil. Now, some of you guys might be trying to do this for the very first time, and you're just walking through your local auto parts store and can't figure out what kind of oil. Well, first and foremost, you want to check your owner's manual. And for our particular wing road, we decided to go with a 10W30. And you ask, what is 10W30? What does all that mean? So basically, 10W30 is the increments of viscosity based on the temperature of the motor. So you see the 10W, that's basically the thickness or the resistance that the fluid is at cold temperature or just sitting out there. And the 30 is the thickness or viscosity of the oil at running or operating temperature. Basically, the higher the number, the thicker the oil. And for our particular application, we have a 30. Because it's winter, it gets down to maybe the teens or sometimes 0 at this point in the year. And the thicker the oil, the harder start it's going to be earlier in the morning, and cranking time might be longer. Summertime, you'd want a thicker oil because the higher the temperature, then the thinner the oil is going to be, and more restrictions and resistance within the motor, less lubrication. So that's your quick tip here at the studio. Back to you, Luke. Thanks, Luke. We appreciate that extra info. So also, one thing I wanted to mention on these filters, you'll see there's a rubber ring on here. And before you install the new one, not only do you want to lubricate this, but you also want to make sure that the old ring is not missing from here or stuck on the vehicle itself, because if you double up these rings on the filter, then it's a possibility of them just leaking oil everywhere, and you don't want a big mess all over your driveway and no oil in your motor. So make sure that's good, lubricate with some fresh oil, and then we'll be good to go. Once we're good putting all that back together, we'll go ahead and make sure everything's clear and out of the way of the lift, and we'll bring it back down. Now, while we got the lift here in our sight, we'll see here the lifting points. We'll have right here what we call the pinch weld. Normally this is where you would put it, but because the lift isn't wide enough for that, most of the weight is on the front of the vehicle anyways, so we have it set up so that the front is right on that pinch weld. And because it's on the pinch weld, you can't see it, but this rail goes the length of the vehicle on both sides, and that's probably the safest point for lifting the vehicle on a lift like this. There's also plenty of other jacking points that we can touch on at another time. Let's get this back on the ground and go ahead and service the oil. So now that we got this back on the ground, we got our oil. Let's go ahead and top it off, and we'll get this thing going. Now I know it says it takes 4 quarts, but I'm going to stop at 3 3/4. Start it up and run it for a few minutes and check it on the dipstick, and then if it needs to be topped off, then we'll go from there. It's about 3 3/4. Toss the cap back on it and start it up. And we'll let it run for a few minutes, shut her down, give her a few minutes to drain, and we'll check her again. Hopefully you enjoyed our video on quick oil change. Probably seen a million videos, but I figured I'd put one out for myself. You know, it's kind of fun, something to do. Haven't been able to mess with cars very often. And I guess the wing road will be a couple videos from now. Had some issues with heat. Doesn't seem like it heats up very well in the morning. I'm thinking I'm gonna go over a video on how to search for issues with heat. And whenever it comes time to do tires and suspension, we'll probably throw out a video on that. So look out for that one. And I guess that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Press the thumbs up if you liked the video, and subscribe. And don't forget to throw a message down in the comments, and we'll check you next time. Peace out. As far as operating temperature, focus, come on, you can do it. Well, anyways, if you look on